Játészi Pelletier ma idézkízni initially. Billiganabash's chin, Kima Chitney Dasha Che, Billiganadasha Nulle. Welcome back to Resball, where this time we're gonna get into Georgia center Asa Newell. That's, I don't know. I've heard a lot of people kind of give backward compliments to Asa Newell of like, he's just a rim runner. There's not a lot there. I want to push back on that a little bit because I do think there's more upside than what people think with Asa Newell. And he's also been kind of in this unenviable position. I mean, it's successful, but it's stuck between Cooper Flag and Derek Queen. But definitely got out of the shadow here at Georgia. So let's get into Asa Newell right about now. So Asa Newell was born in Atlanta. He grew up mostly in Athens, then went to Choctawhatchee High School, which is in Florida. And I believe he was there for 2 seasons, really stood out. And then Montverde came and snatched him up for his junior and senior season. Asa Newell's stats senior year at Montverde: 11.4 points per game, 6.1 rebounds per game, 1.2 assists per game, 0.2 steals per game, and 0.8 blocks per game. Shooting splits for Asa Newell in that senior year at Montverde were 75% from the field, from 2-point range, 43% from 3-point range, and then 55% from the free throw line. So yes, it was 75, 43, 55 shooting splits on that 11.4 points per game. And to give you the numbers of like, was it a small sample size or whatever? The numbers I have for Asa Newell: he was 21 of 49 from three at Montverde in that final season. So that's 43%, 21 of 49 from three. And then from the free throw line, he was 21 of 42. So not necessarily small sample size, and I think that's enough of a sample size to keep in there. Spoiler alert, I'm going to say I think Asa Newell is a better 3-point shooter than what the numbers indicate. And part of my thing is going to be, look at these high school numbers. Like, those are really good 3-point numbers. And remember, this is somebody in high school who had to play between a Cooper Flag and a Derek Queen to be the rim protector and make up for the defense that Derek Queen lacks, and then try and supplement and be something like stretch big to a Cooper Flag when he kicked it out to you, and create more space and things for those two guys to operate to as well. Because Coop, even though now he's a good 3-point shooter, wasn't always the case. But broke out of the shadow of those two guys. Asa Newell went to Georgia this year, where he was the man. I believe he was their leading scorer, if I remember correctly. Let's check on there real quick. If you didn't know, too, the Georgia team made it to the tournament. They were 20-13, a very good team that took a step forward under Mike White. And they have a bunch of interesting guys like Silas Demery Jr., Blue King, Dakota LaFew, Tyler Lawrence, and Santos Cyril. Santos Cyril and Silas Demery are probably the guys to look at in the future. Blue King will probably be a sleeper prospect in terms of a shooter. But yeah, Asa Newell was the leading scorer for this Georgia team, so was the guy there. And it's funny, even though people are like, he's not much on offense, like, I don't know about this. Like, he led the way for a successful team, and Georgia hasn't exactly been like a basketball powerhouse. So I do think that should be put into the equation as well, as like leading scorer for a 20-win Georgia team that made it to the tournament when they haven't had many seasons like that. I mean, remember Ant-Man, Anthony Edwards was at Georgia. He ain't leading no 21 team, man. I know the depth wasn't as good as this one, but still, it's something to consider. So it's one season at Georgia. Asa Newell scored 15.4 points per game, pulled in 6.9 rebounds per game, dished out 0.9 assists, had 1 steal per game, 1 block per game. Shooting splits for Asa Newell were 62.7% from 2-point range, 29.2% from 3-point range, and then 74.8% from that free throw line. All of this translates into a true shooting percentage of 61.2%. So a couple things to consider: 3-point attempt rate, 25.3%. Nothing to sneeze at. We'll get into the numbers here in a minute. And then free throw attempt rate of 38.4%, which is pretty good. I think Asa Newell isn't always thought of as like the most physical guy, even though he is a dunker. I know at one point he was leading like the NCAA in dunks, but not always somebody like a Derek Queen who just knows how to manufacture free throw attempts. I think he did get a little bit better at that and showed like, okay, pick and roll. Okay, I do get easy dunks and stuff. How can I leverage that in getting a line more? And I think it got a little bit better. I don't think he'll ever be like the free throw magnet that is Derek Queen, but I do think he'll get to the line a decent amount there. Oh boy, where to start here? I guess I would just throw the deficiencies right out of the way and get those out of the way. Because I do like Asa Newell a lot. I think he's a more like safer prospect just because at the very minimum, athletic dude, rim runner, gets easy dunks, will block shots, can switch and do things like that. But the main big man deficiency to me is on defense. Excuse me, on the glass, on rebounding. 13.5% defensive rebounding, 13.7% total rebounding. But on the offensive glass, 13.9% offensive rebounder. So it's 13s all across the board. I guess for me, it's just mainly on the defensive glass. I feel like he doesn't get in there enough for being the center. And it's not like, there were too many other dudes that should be in the way at Georgia. But Arsenal wasn't the best rebounder at Georgia. If you go back and look at those tapes on the defensive glass, like Arsenal just isn't getting in there enough for my taste. And if he's going to be the center, which that's the position he should be playing in the NBA, then like the 117 defensive rebounds wasn't even the best on this team. It was Blue Cane. Oh boy. I mean, this kind of just shows the deficiency of the Georgia team as a whole. The Blue Cane's a shooter. If you didn't watch this team, that would be like if Nipple led the Duke Blue Devils in rebounds. Or I'm trying to think of another one that's just like over the shooting guard is that like really all they do is shoot threes, 6'5", 190, and that guy is their defensive rebounder, leading defensive rebounder. Something's wrong, man. And Silas Emery Jr., the other guard there on the team, was the third leading defensive rebounder with 107, and he's 6'5", 180. So on the defensive glass, like something's got to give. I think maybe some of it's the size. Asa Newell always, to me, seemed like he was like 6'10" and like 200-ish. I question the size, but at the combine, Asa Newell measured in at 6'9" without shoes. So he's a legitimate 6'10", weighed in at 223 pounds, which I'm kind of shocked by. I thought he'd like 215 maybe. And then 6'11" and a quarter-inch wingspan. I think maybe the wingspan is part of the thing here of like not necessarily getting there and getting the hands up and getting the arms up above everybody else. In the 223, again, we'll see if that weight stays on. I just don't see Asa like really pushing his weight around, getting his body into too many guys on the defensive glass. But on the offensive glass, that 13.9% offensive rebounding, I think that's the best percentage that we've looked at so far. 110 offensive rebounds, 117 defensive rebounds, 227 total. Offensively will get you extra points and stays active there on that end while also not getting you completely cooked on the defensive end. I've seen so many people already argue for Arsenal being like, maybe his like position is ultimately at power forward. Partially because like the offensive rebounder, if you're a power forward at 6'10"-ish and you can keep getting up there, then your center is like free to just get back on defense and you don't have to worry about getting cooked. I think that's part of like maybe he's just a power forward kind of thing. Also, the defensive rebounding side of things I just put out there. That's probably the bigger argument of people saying like, I don't know if he can hang at center. Again, 117 defensive rebounds for a guy that's supposed to be your 5. And that's just not going to cut it in the NBA. And he does have to be more physical on that defensive glass, understand positioning more, like fight for a little bit more rebounds. Something has to improve there on the defensive glass. And he's got to work on that side of the ball because everything else, 33 steals, 32 blocks. Again, the 227 total rebounds. I think this is somebody that can legitimately switch, that we saw do things on the defensive side of the ball to where you can see like, okay, he can hang with guards. Okay, he still is a pretty solid rim protector. And I would encourage anybody go back to the Montverde tape. Again, he's the center. It's not Derek Queen. Derek Queen has to be covered up on defense. And we saw that at Maryland as well with Julian Reese. It's Asa that was the rim protector, and it was Coop that was the weak side guy. So I do think Asa has more fight and grit to be the 5-man there. Again, the lack of strength I think did show up at times where it's like, again, this is where I kept thinking like, this guy looks like he's like 200, 210, maybe 215 tops, because it seemed like bigger, stronger guys could put a shoulder into him and move him, and he wasn't too much of an obstacle. So we'll see if that 223 added some strength there. So that's the other part of it is like if you're wanting him to be a traditional stay in the paint, be strong, and block other traditional centers, not necessarily a thing. And another reason why a lot of people want to make the power forward argument. But I mean, if he goes to somewhere like the Warriors or somewhere that's super switch heavy like my Pistons, then it's like you're gonna see this guy is gonna be totally fine because he can work with everybody else. And if you're just gonna switch everything, then you don't have to worry about him being like the rim protector and having to handle the strength because he has more defensive versatility than just to be parked in a paint. All right, the shot chart here, 1 of 9 in mid range again with all three of these guys, Derek Queen, Asa Newell, Victor Larkin. I'm like, just if you want to talk about mid range, go somewhere else, and especially for Asa Newell. Like Asa Newell did get the rim runner stamp from a lot of people. I think this is a little bit of a sleeper in terms of a Daryl Morey special. If you're new to res ball and you don't know what that means a guy who shoots only shots at the rim and from three. They got only 9 shots in the mid range, 40 of 92 in the paint, which is 43.5%. That has to be better. That's the one thing I cannot go to bat for with Asa on offense. I don't think he has much touch, to be honest. Like his instincts are to dunk and yam it on people and try and use power moves and stuff to get to the rim. When it comes to trying to do more craft and more finesse stuff in the paint, I don't think he quite has enough touch there to really be relied upon to like take advantage of mismatches. But again, if you're just somebody that's like, hey, we want a rim running big who could occasionally pop threes, that's totally fine. I'm not arguing for Austin Willis like a Jaren Jackson Jr., where even like you can have him create some offense and stuff. No, it's like a fifth guy that really is more defensive leaning and can be efficient on offense. Again, I start with the paint because that's the area that it's like, the touch, the footwork, I'm not sure about this. But at the paint, I mean, at the rim, this is where I get mixed up in my head sometimes. Sometimes I say paint when I really mean the rim, and it's so I need to be careful about that with myself here. So at the rim, Asa Newell was 100 of sank 124 shots out of 162, 76.5%. Again, that's one of the best numbers we're going to look at. Anytime there's a clear lane, he's going to dunk it. When he's under in the dunker spot, he's going to dunk it. Like, this is somebody that could lead the NBA in dunks. And it's funny because he's not like a jumpy, super athletic, like dunk contest athlete, but he just has that Jerry Rice athleticism where in the game, you can't deny him and he's going to get to the rack like that. So anybody that's saying like, I don't know about Arsenal finishing, like they're out of their mind. And I think it's from a variety of things. The dunker spot, pick and roll finisher, in transition, he's going to yam it, and that's the number one thing. And for me too, in this modern NBA with a center, even if it's a stretch five, I'm like, I would like your instincts on offense to be dunk it. Like that's what you're looking to do is get to the rim and dunk it for easy points. And part of why I highlighted that I think he got better at getting the free throw line because he figured out a little bit more ways to leverage that to be like, all right, there's a guy in the way, I still can draw a foul, or I can get some and ones and stuff like this. At 162 shots at the rim, that's a lot of shots, 76.5% stellar. You're not going to see too many guys with that many shots at the rim shooting over 75%. And then from three above the break threes, 24 of 78, which is 30.8%, and then 2 of 11 from the corners. Again, I'm just kind of dismiss the corners because that's such a small sample size. But if we break this down to the more medium zones, Asa Newell was 6 of 24 from the left wing, 25%. 11 of 36 from top of the key, 30.6%, and then 7 of 18 from the right wing, 38.9%. So while it does seem just on paper that it's like, there's really only one spot, like the top of the key, 30.6%, like I don't want to live with that. Not so fast, my friend. This is where I would really dive into the conference and non-conference play. Also like the beginning of the year stats versus after that. And I'll give you the cutoff for it. So conference play. Remember, for the season, Asa Newell shot 29.2% from three, 26 of 89 total shots, 29.2% for the entire year. You break that into conference play, Asa Newell is 17 of 56, which is 30.4%. So that went up. The percentage went up as conference play went on. And the big difference to me is the first 9 games. The first 9 games, Asa Newell was 3 of 19 shots. I want to say it was either 3 of 19 or 3 of 17. I mean, he only made 3 shots and 3 shots from 3 in 9 games, so that's obviously bad. But after that, starting in the 10th game on December 14th, 2024 all the way to Asa's final game in the tournament, in the NCAA tournament on March 20th, 2025. That's 24 games, and Asa Newell was 23 of 70, which is 32.9%. Couple then when in with a free throw percentage of 78.3% down the way, you're starting to see Asa Newell getting better as a shooter. And then again, throw back to that high school number I gave you at the beginning. He was 43% from three, while next to Cooper, while next to Derek Queen. And then it was 55% from the free throw line. So you're like, I don't know, maybe all those guys are just taking pressure off him and his mechanics suck. I think he's worked on his mechanics quite well, and I think they're getting a lot better. I don't know that I'm ever going to say he's going to be like just pass it to him and let him drain threes over everybody kind of guy. But I think that 32.9% indicates that this is at least somebody that's going to be league average and you can count on to knock down a shot. I also think confidence wise, he was more confident to take them as the year went on. 2.9 3-point attempts per game in those final 24 games. So to me, anytime I want to buy a new shooter, it's you're not shying away from them, and you see these incremental increases in the percentages, and you see also the increases in the percentage of the free throw line. So I do think this is somebody to invest in long term, and definitely should be in the lottery. I have Asa Newell at 13. I think that's like the perfect spot to take him. Where you're like, okay, even if we don't buy in the shooting, even if we're like, he's just a rim running big, everything else still profiles is like he's a dunker. He's gonna finish it. He got better at getting the free throw line. He increased his free throw percentage as well, and he can switch on defense. Like, sure, if you're somebody that needs to guard Jokic or Embiid like all the time, then yeah, you might run into some issues. But there's so many guys that need to have that kind of a switch athleticism and be able to have some kind of stretchability and other things. And I mean, again, elite finisher, one of the best finishers in college basketball this past season was Asa Newell. My comp for Asa Newell is Khalil Ware. I don't think that this is a little bit hard because I think Khalil Ware did have some character and like motor issues. I don't think Asa has those, but I do think the skill set is very similar. Khalil's a little taller. He's 7 foot for sure, but 230, so not far off in the size. And him too, like you say 7 foot, 230, you're gonna think he's this big Hulk. But then you see him and you're like, oh, he's kind of slender, like a skinny 230, like a cut up one. But same thing, like he's a good athlete, very good movement guy, getting better as a shooter, and showed out that he, you know what, when his motor's firing, he's good on defense. I think Khalil's not as great as a switch guy, but I think it's the same thing. An athletic big who, at the very minimum, can be a rim runner, will block some shots, and also have that time that he put in as a shooter to get better. And I think he shot like 31.7% from three as a first year in his rookie year. But you look at the differences between Khalil Ware's freshman season and a sophomore season, it's something like 27.3%, I believe, is what Khalil Ware shot as a freshman. And then it was in like it was 37, I think, percent as a sophomore. And you saw like, okay, maybe there's something here. And I think it's the same thing with an Asa Newell, to where if he had a second year, I think it'd be that kind of similar thing. But in this case, I think he would be more willing to take more threes just because we saw that as the year went on here too. Asa Newell got more confident in his 3-point shot. The percentage went up, and he continued to get better at the free throw line as well. So buy into Asa Newell as a 3-point shooter. And even if you don't, at the very minimum, a switch guy that can finish at an elite level, similar to Khalil Ware. So many good things on Asa Newell here on YouTube. There are a bunch of different shorts that you can look at, like things on his jump shot mechanics. Definitely go look at that too. I think you can definitely see the work he put in and how like he's trying to keep his offhand from moving. So yeah, great stuff. Even some things like getting to know him and getting on the big board, pro day things. But if you want to look at things in particular, Cash Iggy, again, so many great games from Cash Iggy on Asa Newell. Just put up Cash Iggy, and that's Cash like Cash Money, CASHIGGY, Cash Iggy, all Asa Newell stuff. And then No Ceilings NBA, NoCeilingsNBA.com, great season highlight package. And then as far as scouting reports go, Floor and Ceiling has a great scouting report on Asa Newell and Derek Parker, and I think that was Lau. So Derek Parker has a great one as well on Asa Newell. That was about 11 minutes. If you don't have that kind of time, you only got 1 minute, then Asa Newell's 60-second scouting report by Minute Scout. Minute Scout's somebody I don't think I've talked about before, but go check those out. They're more like YouTube shorts. I don't know if they're on TikTok because I'm a 41-year-old man that's too old to be on TikTok, so that's why I'm not there. But if you want something that's just bite-sized to get a snippet of what this player is like, what their game is like, definitely go check out Minute Scout. So remember, Asa Newell, buy into the 3-point shot. Similar to Quillel Ware. You know the athleticism is good, even better finisher, and you know this guy can switch and stuff and doesn't have the motor concern. So buy into Asa Newell. Yeah, thank you so much for listening to us. We'll catch you next time. I'm going to